Good afternoon. It is great to be at GSR 18, to be a part of this discussion on artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. Thank you to Director Brahima Sanouf and the ITU for facilitating this week's discussions. I appreciate Director Sanouf's focus on development and connectivity. I would respectfully, however, note that he omitted one critical thing in his introduction. Today is indeed a special day for the Bahamas. It's an even more special day for me. Today is my wedding anniversary. And while I appreciate the applause, I'm quite certain that when I get home, it will not do me any good. But I'm especially grateful for the opportunity to share my ideas with and to learn from my distinguished colleagues on this panel. I enjoyed very much Chairman Grindiano's comments. I look forward to the insights from Ms. Lauterbach and Mr. Moeddine. In particular, Dr. Lauterbach, I think, quite literally wrote the book on artificial intelligence, so I'm looking forward to her comments. If it feels like we've been talking about the possibilities of artificial intelligence or AI our whole lives, it is because we have. The term AI was coined 60 years ago by a professor in the United States at Dartmouth College, which hosted the seminal workshop on AI in 1956. In his proposal for that conference, Professor John McCarthy stated that the conference was, quote, to proceed on the basis of the conjecture that every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence can, in principle, be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. Very radical thoughts in 1956 and a reality in 2018. And indeed, after decades of talk about AI's potential, we have finally begun to see its practical applications. Here's just one example. At the FCC, each year, we have a program through which we recognize people who develop new technologies to assist those living with disabilities. One of this year's winners sounds like something from a science fiction movie, but it is very real. Microsoft has developed an app that uses AI and deep learning tools to narrate the visual world, describing nearby people and objects with spoken audio or real-time text for those with visual impairments. The app's name, appropriately enough, is Seeing AI. Now, of course, AI is transforming other sectors too, like commerce and healthcare and education and energy, basically every part of our economy and society. Just look at the front story on today's New York Times International version. AI finds a home in the fashion industry. And the story starts out, one of the best-selling t-shirts for the Indian e-commerce site Myntra is an olive, blue, and yellow color blocked design. It was conceived not by a human, but by a computer algorithm. Needless to say, I could use the fashion advice of quite a few algorithms, and I look forward to trying their products. But on a more serious note, just a few weeks ago, McKinsey released a new analysis of smart cities that quantifies some of the potential of AI and the connection with high-speed internet access. Looking only at digital technologies that are commercially available and deployed in real-world settings, McKinsey determined that smart city applications like optimized dispatching and intelligent traffic signals could speed up emergency response times by 20 to 35%. And it could reduce commuting times by an average of 15 to 20%. Remote patient monitoring and other digital health tools could reduce the burden on healthcare facilities by 8 to 15% while saving countless lives. The report also projects that these technologies will result in more jobs, fewer crimes, and a cleaner environment. And again, this is just looking at the applications that already exist. Now, studies like this help explain why I recently announced that the FCC would hold a forum on the impact of artificial intelligence and machine learning on the communications marketplace later this year. And more broadly, the United States is looking to establish a policy environment that encourages the development of these new technologies and the high-speed networks that will be critical to delivering those technologies' potential. Let me briefly highlight a few of the ways in which we are doing that, some of our guiding principles on these issues. First guiding principle. When dealing with new technologies, I believe that one of the foundational principles for government should be regulatory humility. History teaches us that emerging technologies will evolve in ways that people can't anticipate. And this makes it unwise for government to micromanage, or more accurately, to try to micromanage their future. There's often a strong temptation to regulate new technologies, especially by forcing them into old frameworks. But my strong belief is that government should resist preemptive regulation where there is no market failure and no consumer harm. One should not broadly regulate based solely on anticipation. Regulatory humility also means that government shouldn't pick winners and losers in the marketplace. The best way to maximize the benefits of new technologies is to promote a competitive marketplace and then let market forces work. And promoting competition means technology-neutral rules that don't protect the market position of incumbents. Now, the second guiding principle. In addition to regulatory humility, the FCC believes that government should facilitate, not frustrate, innovation and investment. And that is why the FCC has launched an across-the-board review to identify regulations that need to be revised or repealed altogether. In particular, we are cutting the regulatory red tape, as we call it, that holds back infrastructure deployment. For example, we have instituted reforms to speed the deployment of 5G wireless networks. These networks, as was just described by my colleague, will help usher in emerging technologies like AI. As you know, the wireless networks of the future will look different from the networks of today. They will be far more densified and will rely on small cells. And so our rules should adjust accordingly. A small cell should not have to clear the same regulatory hurdles that apply to a 60-meter-foot tall tower. Otherwise, 5G services would never come to be. To avoid that outcome, the FCC recently decided that small cells would no longer face the same federal approval processes that are designed for traditional large towers. And beyond cutting rules that slow network build-out, we are promoting investment in next-generation networks with a forward-thinking regulatory approach. I often say that dumb pipes won't deliver smart cities. And that is why we reversed the previous administration's decision to impose 20th century utility-style regulations on our 21st century networks. In its place, we have restored the market-based, light-touch, flexible network approach that governed the Internet in the United States for much of its existence. This framework will preserve a free and open Internet. It will also encourage the investment and innovation necessary to realize the promise of next-generation technologies, such as AI. In addition to this, we have modernized rules that required investment in maintaining out-of-date copper networks. This will direct more investment to the resilient networks of the future instead of the fading networks of the past. Now, the third guiding principle is that perhaps the most important way the FCC facilitates innovation is by freeing up spectrum for wireless services and making it available for flexible use. If I listed all of the ways that we are making low-band and mid-band and high-band spectrum available, it would take us all the way to the beginning of the France-Belgium match this evening. But I would like to make just a couple of high-level points about our spectrum agenda. For one thing, we did not wait to make spectrum available until we established 5G standards through a government-led process. We put our faith in industry to develop standards through a private sector-led process, just as we did with 4G. For another thing, we also are promoting experimentation to encourage emerging technologies that use that spectrum. For instance, we have proposed a new class of experimental licenses above 95 gigahertz that would give innovators greater flexibility to see what might work and what might not. Now, here in the ITU, we have an opportunity to work together toward international radio spectrum allocation and harmonization for next-generation terrestrial, mobile, and satellite services. This will help ensure that AI and other emerging technologies are promptly introduced into the marketplace. A fourth and final guiding principle. A key part of our approach to emerging technologies is universal access. My top priority as FCC chairman has been making sure that every American can benefit from the digital revolution. To that end, among other steps, we have reformed our universal service subsidy programs to direct billions of dollars of investment to connect unserved communities across the United States, and to do so efficiently. The FCC is making progress on this score, but we still have work to do. And that is, of course, true around the world as billions remain unconnected. And so as we think about these emerging technologies and the theme of new regulatory frontiers, our focus at the ITU should be delivering broadband connectivity for all. That will help extend the promise of AI and blockchain and virtual and augmented reality and other technologies to everybody, regardless of nationality or background. Connectivity is the core of the ITU's mission. It is where the ITU can have its greatest impact. And unlike regulatory intervention, which can deter innovation and detract from scarce public and private resources, a focus on connectivity can unite us as we seek to promote more innovation and greater international unity. Thank you once again for the invitation to participate. I look forward to our exchanges and to learning from you and the audience in the time to come.